During dinner, Mom compared me to my sister. Again, she's the one we're proud of. I quietly helped myself to more potatoes and kept my eyes down. This wasn't new. For as long as I could remember, my sister Olivia had been the golden child, and I was the family disappointment. My parents had created this narrative before I even entered high school. Dad nodded along as Mom listed Olivia's latest achievements: her promotion at the prestigious law firm, her engagement to a surgeon, and the inheritance she'd received from our grandmother last year. The inheritance that should have been split between us, but somehow ended up solely in Olivia's bank account after a private meeting with our grandmother shortly before she passed. I noticed how Mom's diamond tennis bracelet caught the light, a small gift from Olivia that probably cost more than my monthly salary at the bookstore. When are you going to do something meaningful with your life, Eleanor? Dad asked, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. His question hung in the air like a guillotine. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation as I sat there in their immaculate dining room, surrounded by family photos where Olivia always stood front and center, while I was relegated to the edges, sometimes partially cropped out. The family portrait above the fireplace told the whole story. Mom and Dad beaming proudly behind Olivia in her graduation gown, while I stood slightly apart, my smile forced. "I like my job," I said quietly, though no one seemed interested in my answer. What they didn't know was that I'd been documenting every instance of favoritism, every manipulation, every betrayal in a leather-bound journal I kept hidden in my apartment. Not because I was planning anything, at least not then, but because sometimes I needed to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Well, speaking of meaningful things, Olivia said, her perfect smile spreading across her face as she reached for her fiancé Jason's hand, "We've decided to move up the wedding date," and she paused dramatically. "We're using Grandma's inheritance to buy that beautiful colonial on Maple Street. You know, the one with the wraparound porch that Mom always loved." Mom gasped with delight, while Dad nodded approvingly. I gripped my fork tighter, remembering how I'd told Olivia about my dream of buying that exact house someday. She'd sabotaged me deliberately, knowing I could never afford it now. I watched as she sipped her wine, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of her glass. There was something there, not guilt, but satisfaction. She enjoyed this. The conversation shifted to wedding plans, with my parents enthusiastically offering to contribute a significant amount to ensure it was perfect. The same parents who had told me they couldn't help with my student loans last year because money was tight. I sat quietly, absorbing every detail, every betrayal, every slight. That night, as I drove home to my modest apartment, something shifted inside me. The familiar ache of being the family disappointment hardened into something else entirely. I wouldn't be their scapegoat anymore. I wouldn't sit quietly while Olivia took everything that should have been mine. The drive home that night was different. I wasn't crying like usual. Instead, I was thinking, planning, calculating. If they wanted to make me invisible, I'd use that invisibility to my advantage. They never paid attention to what I was doing anyway. The next morning, I called in sick to the bookstore and drove to my grandmother's lawyer's office. Mr. Peterson had always been kind to me, unlike his typical brusque demeanor with most clients. "Eleanor," he said, genuine warmth in his voice as he welcomed me into his office. "What can I do for you today?" I explained that I was trying to understand the change in my grandmother's will. "I'm not contesting it," I assured him. "I just want to know why she changed her mind." He looked uncomfortable, adjusting his tie. "You know I can't discuss the details of your grandmother's will without proper authorization," he said carefully. I nodded, playing the role of the understanding granddaughter. "Of course I respect that. I just thought Grandma and I were so close. She promised me half of her estate since I was a little girl." It was a shock when everything went to Olivia. Mr. Peterson's expression changed subtly. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. "Eleanor," he said slowly, "your grandmother never changed her will. The final version was exactly as she'd always planned it. Equal distribution between you and your sister." My heart stopped. "What?" I managed to whisper. He looked genuinely perplexed now. "The estate was divided equally. Each of you received approximately $750 USD. Did you not?" He trailed off, realization dawning on his face. I felt like the room was spinning. "I never received anything," I said, my voice barely audible. "I was told Olivia was the sole beneficiary." Mr. Peterson's professional demeanor cracked slightly. "Eleanor, I personally oversaw the transfer of funds. The money was deposited into accounts for both you and Olivia 6 months ago." I left Mr. Peterson's office with copies of the transfer documents and a terrible understanding forming